Live from Moda'in, it is the Connect, or what is it? It's the Israel Update. I have no idea what we're doing this morning, Hanoch. And
Hey, Mike.
yeah, I mean, you've already got me confused because, I was going to ask you about your wonderful day of guiding the other day, but you've already told me that that is not something we can even talk about. It was so bad.
Yeah, when you're hired to guide for another company, you're at their mercy. And when they send you to the other end of the country without checking if those sites have reopened, and they didn't, that's the Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth. That's Kfar Nachum Capernaum. That is Yardenit. Yeah. And then when they give you an Arab van driver who doesn't know how to operate Waze and keeps pulling into gas stations asking other Arab Israelis if they can, program it for him. And in one case, they sent us southeast when we need to be going north on Route 6. It couldn't have gone any worse.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that there was one guy in the van who accused me of orchestrating the whole thing. That I'm behind this company's business plan, this business model, which is to take money from people and not deliver anything.
Yeah. And what they don't know is that you have such an amazing sense of direction to begin with.
Well, the thing is, when I'm faced backwards, trying to keep these people entertained, I'm not watching what I'm counting on the driver knowing where to go.
Yeah, I can
amazing concept.
Yeah, I can just imagine that. I mean, I've been with you as you're facing backwards, and I can imagine how that was. Yeah, I just assumed that I was not doing the tour leading on that one. So look, I see that either the shekel is up 4% this year or the dollar's down another 4% and everybody else is. So
both things have happened. Right now, the dollar is at 3.11 shekels.
Amazing.
Which is the lowest it's been in 25 years.
Yeah.
Probably when you started coming to Israel, it was about probably 4 shekels to the dollar.
It was pretty much, I mean, it was right on there to where, a shekel was equal to a quarter. That was across the board.
That made it really easy for people.
Yeah. During the Oslo War, I actually saw 5-1. So a shekel was worth about 20 cents. Now, to put this into some kind of perspective, a shekel is worth about 35 cents, something like that.
Approximately.
So this is good for you guys.
Well, the thing is, our food prices are still, out of this world.
Oh, yeah.
And our salaries are still low for those who can work. Duh. Yeah. And they keep changing the regulations. I mean, it's getting better, but it's going to be a long process.
Yeah.
This is going to be an elongated process of bringing tourism back. In the meantime, of course, in January, as we all know, dun 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 dun. Yeah, you got to be careful because Hanoch's coming to America. Schedule, Baruch Hashem, thank God, is filling up. January, where am I in January? I'm at Out of Ashes Ministries. I'm at United Israel World Union in St. Francisville, Louisiana. I'm at Gates to Zion in West Columbia. I've got all my pals in Franklin. Yeah, go on now. From there, where am I going? I'm going to Virginia.
Yeah.
With Barry Phil. I'm hoping it's Barry and not Cletus. I'm always a little concerned.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Then it looks like I'll be in Kentucky. and then finishing the month in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
February schedule is coming together, and as soon as I have even a basic outline, I'll be posting that up both on Facebook and on my website, and then filling in the individual details of what's the actual street address and what's the time.
Okay.
So
Good.
right now there are a bunch of things up in the air, but you snooze, you lose.
Yeah. And
You know,
Kaya's already, waiting for you with her little, bated doggy breath to bark consistently at you, because that's what she does.
yeah. Turning to a serious and somber note, Kristallnacht,
Uh,
the anniversary of what in effect was the full-blown start of the Shoah, the
yeah.
Holocaust, where the German Jewish community, which had lived there about 1,200 years, was decimated overnight. And it's interesting. An old friend of mine from the U.S., his father had lived in a fairly small, well, a moderate-sized town in Germany, and the mayor of the town had put the fire department on alert. So after the flames, were destroying the synagogues, that if the flames had gone on to a Christian home nearby, the fire department was standing by to put that fire out.
Well,
So this was all, as we all know now, it was all planned, it was all orchestrated.
mhm.
Ironically, similar to the Oslo War, the so-called Second Intifada,
Yeah.
where people to this day say, well, Ariel Sharon went up to the Temple Mount and that's what caused this. No, even the so-called Palestinian Authority has admitted this was all planned. This was
Mhm.
all set up.
Mhm.
Anyway,
I mean, it was,
uh,
Sharon going up there on the Temple Mount we could maybe look at that as a trigger, or part of the trigger, but the whole thing was totally planned from the start, just like
right. So
most everything else.
it,
I got to tell you, I was in,
instead of trigger, I would say that was the excuse
yeah,
to
yeah,
begin it.
yeah, good
Yeah.
word there. I was in Vienna, Austria. This was back, 2000, probably 2000. Yeah, because it was before 9/11. And I was able to, there was a United States, the Jewish ambassador to Austria. I somehow I met him, and so he asked if wanted to go to synagogue with him. He was more kind of Jewish by birth kind of person.
He was ambassador from where? From the
Uh,
US?
no, I can't remember where he was from. I thought he was from Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was the ambassador from Israel.
Okay.
And so he asked if I wanted to go to synagogue with him. And it was like, hey, yeah, you got it, man. And it was interesting because the service is in Hebrew, but yet he's trying to explain to me the service, and I know more about it than he does. So that was kind of funny. But interesting enough, that this was the only synagogue during Kristallnacht that had not had any damage at all. Um,
Wow.
it was eerie. Um, I remember walking down that cobblestone road to get to the synagogue, and except for the lights, the modern electricity and neon lights and stuff, if you close your eyes, the sights or the sounds were exactly as it was, many years earlier. You could just project yourself back to that time so easily. Um,
Wow.
it was an
Well,
amazing experience. It was something else. So yeah, Kristallnacht is it's one of those times where, of course, kind of history, as Mark Twain says, history at least rhymes. And the rhyme here is it's the Jews' fault.
Yeah, I just 1 second. I've got to pull the curtain here. Getting
Yeah,
sun in
you're
my face.
I didn't know if that was the sun or just your natural light or something. I'm not,
Okay. Hopefully that's a little better.
that's a little better. Yeah.
Okay. The sort of segue from Kristallnacht is the fact that anti-Semitism now is at a fervor pitch worldwide.
Mhm.
And just last night, our ambassador to England, Sipi Hatovelli, was literally barred from speaking at a London university where she was scheduled, despite incredibly heavy security presence. The demonstrators had penetrated inside and it was considered unsafe. So they
Wow.
whisked her away to safety. It's really amazing. And then
Mhm.
just now, just before we got on, I saw that UNRWA, the United Nations relief bogus organization, um, had a vote, of course, acknowledging and supporting the so-called Palestinian right of return.
Mhm.
Um, and the US changed their vote from no to abstaining. So this is the start of America actively working against Israel.
Mhm.
The last few months, that you can kind of read between the lines, but now it's come right out. And as
Oh,
I
yeah.
mentioned to you right before we start, whenever America as a nation has screwed with Israel, it is always, sadly, worked out really bad against America. Now, if it was just against the American government,
Mhm.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
But sadly, it affects Americans or
If
will
you
affect
go,
America.
yeah, you go back to, there was a book written about 17, 18 years ago, I think it was, by John McTiernan. John wrote a book called God's Final Warning to America. That ended up, and I knew John. I've lost contact with him. I don't know what he's doing these days, but he was following all of the things and chronicled all these things that had happened when America had made decisions against Israel. Now, this was picked up by a man that I also know, Bill Koenig. I actually was able to spend some time in Israel at the with Hayovel with Bill and his wife
Oh, okay.
in the vineyards. It was a great time. Bill's a wonderful guy, and so he does the website. He wrote a book that was kind of the sequel to God's Final Warning. It was called Eye of the Storm. It's been around for quite some time, but I think is still very relevant if people have not read that book. He also has the website watch.org, and he continues to chronicle the things that are happening when America makes any kind of a vote against Israel. There's repercussion, sometimes
Yeah,
within moments.
shocking. Yeah, yeah. It's really it's shocking, but it's I'd like to think that I can control everything around me,
Yeah,
but I
how's that
can't.
working?
I can
No,
I
you
can
you
barely control myself,
yeah. Well, that's
in
for
all
another
honesty.
program. Okay, that's for a whole other program. I mean, you barely figure out how to after 20 months how to get a van up to Nazareth, but that's a memory.
But again, the thing is, and I didn't want to discuss this at all, but it wasn't for me to get the
Yeah,
van up there.
yeah, I know.
There's a driver.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
know.
driver and a company.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
anyway,
for anybody that's been on
moving along.
tours, anybody that's been on tours, you have a tour. You normally have a tour leader, you have a tour company, you have a tour guide, and you have a bus driver. And all of those people have their specific thing to do. And don't ask the tour guide to be the bus driver, especially when your tour guide
Right.
is Hanoch.
Well,
Okay, so I want to go quickly into something that we bring out a lot of the news of Israel, and so the sites to be looking at for this: Jerusalem Post, I use Israel National News, which is a Sheva. There's some good sources out there, but I want to once again, and this is not something that we normally do, of calling people out. But if anyone is receiving their news from Breaking Israel News, I can tell you, I've already got a line on what the headlines will be next week, and that is that Elvis has been seen in the newly opened 7-Eleven in Tel Aviv.
yeah, I saw one of the headlines the other day that oil is being prepared for the use in the rebuilt Beit HaMikdash, and it came to my attention only because a whole slew of people that I know were sharing it on Facebook. Baruch Hashem, and guys, the temple's not being rebuilt right now. We have oil. We've had oil that's been prepared for this purpose. Don't make more out of it than it is. And again, making more out of it than it is there was some Beit Din, some rabbinic court that ruled against young people getting the vaccination against COVID. And someone that I really, like and respect, was posting that like, this is a big deal. Who are these guys on the Bet Din? It was positioned as if this was the halachic court.
Yeah.
And I tried to bring the attention that, X number, let alone you do not go and ask a rabbi for advice on a medical or science related issue. That's coming from an Orthodox Jew. You don't go and ask, because if you go and ask, if they do their due diligence, they'll go and ask the experts and then come back to you. But my point of view is, let's eliminate the middleman. If you choose not to be vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. But don't create a scenario where, well, the halachic court said. That ain't the case.
Well, this comes back to a story that this same news, the Israel National Enquirer, as we would like to call it, came up with that there's the Sanhedrin is now in effect. I mean, this has been something that's talked about for centuries, but you talk about the Beit Din and the halakhic court and all these things. It's like, I remember going up to Har Brakah, the Mount of Blessing, being up there with Hayavel, and discussing with some of the Jewish people in the area up there, in the town of Har Brakah, and about Rabbi Melamed. And basically somebody said, well, he's the rabbi for those that want him to be their rabbi.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, there is no halakhic court in Israel or anywhere else that has the power to put out any more than there's a Christian denomination that has the authority and the power to say what's right for all Christianity. I mean, the Pope can't even do that for the Catholic Church.
Well, but the Catholic Church does have a hierarchy.
Yeah, but nobody follows it.
If you subscribe to that, I mean, there are Catholics who are nominally Catholic, but there are others who, with their kids going to Catholic school, belonging to the local parish, the local archbishop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The archdiocese, rather, not archbishop. That's their thing. But in any case, I say that, but people don't listen to that because they want to seize upon something. And, I mean, seriously, people have to use their brains,
Well,
which I guess can be a challenge for some.
it's like this. People are looking. Many people are looking for the sensational.
Yeah,
That is why they have the National Enquirer and all these rags that are there at the checkout. And it's amazing. You watch people, and they're all looking at it, and they're all like, "Well, we know that that's garbage. We know that that's not news," but they'll read it and start talking to their friends about it, and all of a sudden, it kind of develops this little truth thing. Anytime we're looking at the sensational for truth, we're probably not going to find it.
yeah. Now, let's switch to a much happier note.
Yes.
We're 18 days away from Hanukkah.
Wow.
Hanukkah starts, what is it, the 28th at night?
Yes.
Sunday the 28th. And today is the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Doing
And
quick math. That's what we've got.
Okay. Which means we're even less time that we have between now and the conference in Blue Ridge, which will be Nathan Harmon and myself and the Excess Road Band and a guy named Daniel Clayton, I think it is. Gonna be leading some worship there. So it's on my Facebook site. I'll put it up again pretty soon. But Hanoch, Hanukkah. We have in America tomorrow, we have Veterans Day. And this is a time that is, in America, of course, it will be mattress sales. It's supposed to be a time to honor those that have given. I spent 4 years in the Army. People say thank you for your service, and I say, it wasn't a big deal. All I did was survive 4 years of Carter. I should have gotten a medal. But on another subject. So there's people that that served, and this is a time to honor them. To me, Hanukkah is the same thing in a spiritual realm, that we take time to honor those, such as your rabbi, Rabbi Mir Kahana. It's a time that we just sit back. I kind of take that time just to honor those who have blazed a trail for us today. Your thoughts on that, or Hanukkah in general?
Okay, yeah, I don't relate to the Veterans Day type analogy because we have our Yom HaZikaron, our Memorial Day for our soldiers and security personnel, police.
But see, when I say Veterans Day,
Hanukkah,
I'm using it as an analogy that we have a Veterans Day for those that served in a natural sense, but then we have this for Hanukkah. To me, it's like it's the spiritual side of those who have the people of faith. Okay, that's where I go.
Right. The thing is, there were real battles. There were real war. It was a real war. And part of it, you're right, is the spiritual side. And to this day, the Jewish people are contending with a spiritual assimilation, and not just in the United States and everywhere else outside of Israel. But there was a statistic the other day that I was reading that there are projected 100,000 Israeli couples where one of the partners is not Jewish. Now, that holds tremendous ramifications for them, and more so for their children, if they're not halachically Jewish, if they're not Jewish according to Jewish law, you just don't become that way by osmosis.
Mhm.
And we do not have civil marriage here in Israel.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. So that's a real issue. I mean, as we get closer to Hanukkah, we'll talk more about Hanukkah specifically. But one of the things that's really perplexed me in all these years that I've been, running after my brothers and sisters who claim to be part of Israel, claim to be Ephraim, that Hanukkah is not routinely accepted. And they use the excuse that it's not one of Hashem's Moadim, not one of his festivals. Yeah, we know that. And the most bizarre thing that I've ever heard was when I asked what I think is a very reasonable question, that in the book of John, it does mention Yeshua being at the temple for the Feast of Dedication. Now, I get, since 10 out of 9 people in this movement know no Hebrew, they didn't realize that Hanukkah means Feast of Dedication. I get that, okay. But someone tried to argue with me that, well, maybe he was there to tell them that they were wrong. Now, that's not only a distortion of what the gospel account is recording, but that's really making stuff up. And it comes from this, what I have been struggling with trying to explain to people, is their unwillingness to deal with the Jewishness of Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
They just won't deal with it. Or they'll make up some kind of, they'll kind of make him into like an American Reform rabbi kind of thing, where it's like, hey man, whatever you want to do, it's all cool. And basically, it's like, for brains, they've got poopy diapers up here. It's like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah. Well,
but anyway,
I think that if that was a statement, if that statement was true in any way, the Gospel of John would have recorded that conversation.
Without a doubt, because okay, in the Gospel of Mark, I believe it is, he makes 2 references to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the one that's attributed to whoever John is or was, or whatever, the Gospel of John, there are 70 references to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically not in a very flattering way.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was something to be negative about regarding Hanukkah and Yeshua going to the temple for Hanukkah, he would have said it. It would have been recorded.
I mean, let's just look at it like this. I just taught on Hanukkah. It's on my website. People can order the CD or the MP3. But let's just look at the basis of Hanukkah for anyone who is a follower of Yeshua, is walking out some level of their halakha, their walk of Torah. Let's just boil it down to the very basics. That if it had not been for Judah Maccabee, if it had not been for Mattathias, it had not been for those that teamed up with them and fought with them, Yeshua, the Gospels would never have been written.
Absolutely
not.
And
there would have been no arguments regarding halakha in the Gospels, because halakha is about how you walk out the Torah. And so if it had not been for the Maccabees, there would have been no Torah, because Antiochus Epiphanes, one of his desires was to eradicate it from planet Earth. So there would be no Torah for us to be restored to and walk out. And the other
Absolutely.
thing is that there would not have been a Jewish girl up on the Galilee named Miriam, because her great something grandparents or something in that area would have been killed, because his other thing was to eradicate all the Jews from the planet, which is kind of like, once again, history rhyming, is let's destroy the Torah and let's destroy the Jews and everything will be fine. So for those that don't want to celebrate Hanukkah, that's your prerogative, but understand the reason that you have a decision to celebrate Hanukkah or not is because of Hanukkah.
It just astounds me. But again, when you're talking about Antiochus, you have to know the historical background. You have to know the milieu. And generally, I find that knowledge to be woefully deficient. But it is what it is.
Well,
It
maybe
is what it is.
since we have 18 days, we have 2 more weeks. Maybe you could give us a little bit more of an insight into this
Sure.
man who nicknamed himself God Manifest.
Yeah.
Humble.
Well, first of all, being humble, we can underscore that element,
Oh, yeah.
but we can, that's definitely the case. And it's in my neighborhood. It's in Modin.
Yeah,
So,
you're as close to an expert as we have.
indeed. Well, I'm a Mora Derech. I'm a teacher of the way.
There
That's
you
my
go.
license.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. And that, you literally have a license. Hey, give one last thing. You said that so that we don't have anybody that kind of went, what was that? You do not have civil marriages in Israel. So all marriages are considered religious.
Right. So if you're Christian, depending on your denomination, and I think there are 12 or 14 Christian denominations that have representation here in Israel, you have to go with that.
Okay.
If you're Muslim, you have to have an imam. And what some Israelis do, of course, is they fly over to Cyprus, get hitched, come back.
Okay. Similar to going to Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so if somebody goes to Cyprus, gets a civil marriage in Cyprus, it's accepted as marriage.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But again, there's the issue of, if you're not halachically Jewish, if your children are not halachically Jewish, they're going to grow up, they're going to serve in the army, and they're going to fall in love with, that Israeli girl or that Israeli guy, and they're not going to be able to get married. I mean, in theory, yes, they can go civilly, but it's a big issue. It's a big problem.
So the people that got married the last week and Nancy Pelosi officiated the wedding, they're not considered married in Israel.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah, you missed that news report that Nancy Pelosi actually officiated a wedding. And I'm thinking, who in their right mind would do that to begin with?
Cruella de Vil, Cruella de Vil. Yeah, what can I tell you?
Yeah, well, get your 101 Dalmatians t-shirt ready, guys.
Sure enough.
All right, hello. We will talk next week. I'll probably talk to you before that, but we'll be online next week.
I look forward to it.
All right, take care, man.
I look forward to it.